And we are live with Heidi. Hi, Heidi.
How are you, Sabrina? Thanks for having me here today.
Yes, thanks for making the time. I'm so looking forward to our conversation. So before we jump into it, please just introduce yourself a little to the audience and talk a little about what you do and who Heidi is.
Yeah, thank you so much. I am Heidi Gruss, a licensed psychotherapist for more than 2 decades, turned transformation strategist and business coach. I have enjoyed working with people, helping people for many, many years, and found, outside of a clinical setting, there are a lot of people who need help and guidance and support who don't necessarily qualify for a mental health diagnosis. So with my own interest and success as an entrepreneur, and really enjoying conversations with executives and entrepreneurs, I really found that was a special place for me where I was able to, connect and help people get ready for their next level of success without perpetuating that sort of hustle and grind lifestyle. So we can talk more about that a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, one thing already jumped into my head when you were talking, and that's the thing like about being qualified to get help. So was that something that you noticed as a major gap when you were still working as a therapist?
Meaning, so what I noticed was there were a lot of people who were looking for help, sometimes miscategorizing what was going on for them. And the more we got into the conversation, the more I realized this isn't anxiety and this isn't depression. This is burnout. This is lack of balance, lack of healthy routines. It was much more lifestyle choices than it was clinical presentation. And when I reflected on my own experience of, going through different life milestones and things, I kind of pinpointed similar trends. And then I would go around and I would have these conversations. If I was doing a training, for instance, like a corporate training or a talk with entrepreneurs, I would start asking them questions like, how often do you experience feeling exhausted at the end of your day, but not really having a lot to show for what you did? And so you're sitting there going, why am I so tired? I didn't accomplish much today, And that's when I pinpointed, this is really a trend where people are running their business or they are trying to advance themselves professionally at the mercy of their emotions, right? And so it was like depleting that emotional bandwidth. And as soon as I started putting terms to this and initiating conversations with folks, they were like, yes, that completely resonates with me.
Yes.
And then I started getting, I started hitting all the nails as, representing like the problems that people were facing. Another one was self-sabotaging patterns. And I didn't realize that people would connect with the term self-sabotage. But as soon as I would say it, was like deer in headlights, their eyes would get big and they'd say, yes, I do that. Why do I do that? How do I stop doing that? And I thought, oh my gosh, like this is something that for me, I feel like I talk about all day long because it is woven into clinical interventions, but just the average person just wants to know in normal day-to-day life, how do we eliminate these things that are holding you back?
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned your own personal experience also as a successful entrepreneur. So how did that come into play when you made your decision to move from being a therapist to being basically a coach?
Well, so let me just preface. I still do both. I still have a very active clinical practice. but here's the thing, like probably a lot of your listeners, I don't just do one thing ever.
Yes.
Right? It's like when I up-leveled my career, I was also parenting 3 kids under the age of 5, so it was like, why not just add a little bit more? I operated from this motto of the more you do, the more you get done. And I think early on in my education, I have 2 master's degrees, and in establishing myself professionally, that motto worked. Then I got to a point in my life where it didn't work anymore, and I remember we were sitting on the beach of this fancy family vacation, one that I always hoped to be able to afford for my family. And my then 3-year-old was splashing right along the shore. And, she's talking to me. She's like, Mommy, I splash. And, she's having a ball. And I'm sitting there and there are tears in my eyes behind my sunglasses. And I thought, gosh, looking at her, I know I should be feeling joy right now. I'm sitting on this beach. I have every reason to just be like fully fulfilled, but I couldn't access the joy. And I thought, gosh, how many sacrifices have I made in my life to be here at this moment? And this is what success feels like. I mean, something is missing here. And, and this is where, for me, I can be my own worst enemy almost, because I knew at that moment, as much as I was questioning myself, I knew the answers. I knew, like, Heidi, this is about, you have to go inward and figure out what is out of balance here. Because I could probably, talk to my husband or my best friends, or, go into all my self-help, resources and find solutions that would be Band-Aids. But I really needed to go inside and say, what, Heidi, what is missing? What is off kilter? And the power of reconnecting, because that's what I did. I committed to 1 year of deep level self-discovery.
Wow.
And I just said, I'm giving myself a year. It was reconnecting with what's important to me, rather than trying to prove myself out, to other people, bosses. I worked with a bunch of different stakeholders in contracts and things that I was doing, clients that I was seeing. Obviously, we want to do right by our clients. And so I had to get realigned with what was important to me at that point in my life. And, because our values and our priorities change naturally as we move through life. And that was so powerful. And realizing I had to slow down and I had to get really intentional, with what I was doing. I had to align my thinking. I had to align my daily practices, cultivating, really healthy rituals in my life. I had to put value on internal markers versus external. And that's difficult sometimes, because it means going against the grain, going against the crowd at times, but knowing that in the end, it is going to pay off.
And I have,
it's like a tenacity. Like, you have to have that sort of long-term vision to be able to do that. And I don't think, like, it's, I just said that wrong, because it's not like I have a long-term vision that other people don't have. It's reconnecting with that vision on a daily basis, like really like a visualization practice. You are seeing how you want to be, which was the exact opposite from how I was that day on the beach.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's that question that popped into my mind. Exactly. You have started answering it by describing like one of your practices was to really envision how do I want to be and how do I want this life to be? And probably also how do I want to feel in this life? Because that's the other part. But can you describe a little how that process was for you? Because I know from my own experience, it's, you know, in the beginning, it's super bumpy. We have that will and the desire to change, and we have said we are going to make a change, but then to really, you know, cultivating these habits. How was that process for you, and what helped you in going through it successfully, so to speak?
Yeah, so I think the first piece is around allowing yourself to dream. It really is about giving yourself permission. And I say this to my clients all the time. I have an activity that I do with them at step 1 when they start working with me. And there's all of these different journal prompts and things for them to consider to further develop their dream. And I love how you wove in the feeling aspect here, because it isn't just about the details. It isn't just about what you want to have or what you want to do. It's really, what do you want to embody? You know, I ask people, like, when you walk into a room, how is it that you want people to perceive you? What is the energy you're going to exude? What's your attitude like? You know, and when you're interacting with people, you know, think about your posture and how what feelings you're trying to convey to that other person. Because that's what you embody. So it's very much feeling based as much as it is action and desire. And the other piece to the dreaming exercise is I ask my clients to revisit this on several occasions before we even discuss it week 1, because we're not programmed to dream. You know, we are really programmed to think, what do I need to do to get by? Right? It's like, you know, the teacher gives the assignment and you do what needs to get done. Very few people naturally think, how can I do this, you know, to the nth degree? So the dreaming exercise, if a person only completes it one time, what it really represents to me is just one moment in time for that client. Whereas when they revisit it on several occasions, there are some things that are completely different. There are some details that are, they can almost be polar opposites. What's important is when I see them go back to one or two things several times, I'm like, these are the golden nuggets here for you. This is the thing that you're always coming back to. This is the thing that we need to go deeper about, you know, because there's something there.
Yeah. And was that a practice that you also used in your own journey, or did you develop it from your own experience and then?
It wasn't intentional for myself, but I would say at least quarterly, I do revisit sort of, where am I, in what season of my life am I, what is important to me, what are my goals and priorities. I mean, I do this on an annual basis. You know, like for my own business, I had 5 areas this year that were going to get my time, energy, resources, you know, and then I kind of reassess every 3 months. It's not that those 5 things shift. It's just, what am I doing for those 5 areas of my business season? And it, because it's never equal, right? We don't just do, you know, we don't take 5 things and do, you know, 3 things equally in all categories. We can't, it doesn't always work that way. Nothing can be neatly compartmentalized to that degree. But what I realized was that the continuous reconnection to those priorities and to those goals, it helped further develop that vision that I had. Because there was work that was being done in different areas that now it was like, okay, now it's looking like this, you know, and so how do we want to shape it even further, you know? So that wasn't necessarily intentional, though. That was just something that I did. What I found early on working with clients is when I left the dream exercise as one isolated exercise, they were drifting from that dream throughout our work together. And then it was like when I would go back and kind of reassess, like, where did we start and where are we to be in my work with them? It's like, oh, here's some drift. But we didn't, that was just natural drift. How do we know that we're still on course here? And so I had to create a feedback loop here that I was doing my job to keep the person, working towards what they really wanted to work towards. And that's part of, I think, how all of us excel in what we do is we're always refining, right? We're always learning and refining the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you were stuck in that 1 year where, you were reassessing and giving yourself time, what did you do whenever you hit a point where you felt like, hey, this is not working, I'm really freaking out, am I still on track? All those worries, all that stuff that comes up when we are really doing the deep work and trying to figure out what the best cause is here.
Here's the thing. I do remember a few times questioning, is this working? I don't know that I ever concluded this isn't working.
Yes.
Right? So I know there were times when I thought, is this working? Because I'm not seeing results yet. But then I had to also, again, being my own worst enemy, it was like, well, what would be the results that you would see given what you're doing, right? Because with mindset transformation, and this comes up with my clients too, we live in a world where we're looking for instant gratification, some type of instant validation that what we're doing is giving us or securing us the outcome that we want to have. Really, mindset transformation is about building trust in self, right? And so when you have trust in self, there is a confidence there that if and when, whatever the worst case scenario is, or the next challenge or obstacle is, if and when that comes up, you're going to be able to navigate through that and be okay. And so even yesterday, I was in a meeting with my project manager because we've got a big program launching. And, I am a recovering perfectionist. I always have high numbers, and it's funny because last night I went to my daughter's soccer game and she scored a goal, right? And her reaction, she didn't even celebrate it. She just ran back to and my husband and I are laughing. We're like, she didn't even like high five or do an arm pump or anything, right? And so he goes, she's your daughter. She's just thinking, I want to go get the next goal, right? And so I am very much like that. It's like, I'm going to, we think we can do 100. We're going to do 125. We're going to hit numbers. We're going to keep elevating the numbers. As soon as we cross one benchmark, we just push them up. Well, there's two things that I have to say about that. One is we have to celebrate the small victories because it's all of the small victories that are bringing us to the big end goal, right? And if we only wait to celebrate when we hit the big end goal, then there is a lot more frustration and self-doubt and overanalyzing that can potentially happen in pursuit, on that journey to get to the end goal. So the daily celebrations are necessary and they're part of my daily journal ritual that I teach my clients. The other thing is, when I was in this meeting with my project manager and we were reviewing how, things that went really well in our launch and things that where we didn't hit the targets, right? I looked at her and I said, listen, we didn't hit it here. It's okay. I am fully confident in the methodology that we used. It was so consistent that we know this is proven for as we're moving forward. We've got a really good strategy here, like really solid. And so we didn't hit the numbers, but we are so steady moving forward. We have to focus on that. And so I think when you can detach a little bit from the outcome and your self-worth and really focus on what's your strategy, what's your process, what's your methodology, you naturally build that unwavering confidence. You just gotta stay the course now.
Yeah, I think it's very powerful what you just said, that there has to be an attachment. A detachment, sorry. So you have to remove the self-worth from all the external stuff and understand you are just who you are and you're awesome the way you are. And many of us know that in our head. We are telling ourselves that's who we are great, of course, and we say that, but to really let that sink into the essence of our being, so that when certain numbers are not hit, certain things happen, we can really analyze, okay, what are the external circumstances, or what do we want to maybe adjust here? Or is it just that we need to give it a little more time? And we don't start like clouding our judgment with all these things about, oh, maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe I did something wrong, or maybe I should have. And that's really slowing us down.
Because time is a necessary variable whenever you're trying to achieve anything. Whether it's shift a mindset or hit an income goal or finish the book, whatever, we need time. We need time. And so to say, when I was on the beach that day and I said, I'm committing, I'm giving myself 1 year, right? Now, the idea was I'm not chasing a 30-day fix. I'm not going to hold myself to, an expectation that by the end of summer, I'm going to feel a certain way. It was like, if you're really committed, what's a year? Because at the end of a year, even if you haven't fully gotten to where you hope to be, you've certainly progressed enough from where you were. And that's really what the focus needs to be.
Yeah, and the question is also, what are we here to do in this life, right? Are we chasing always the big goal, or is it also about celebrating the day and living the day and feeling the day?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you said that, because this is maybe, I don't know when this podcast will be published, so maybe your listeners will get a first listen to a story that we're going to publish soon through my brand. So, I've been doing this personal growth work for myself for years and years, but on the eve of my 42nd birthday, I said to myself, you know what? This has been such a beautiful process, not just for me, but for so many clients that I have been able to serve. I want to take this to an even deeper level. And I really want to even challenge my own methodology in different ways, and, bring a different level of presence and energy work and all of that to the table. So I said, for my 42nd year, this is what I'm going to do. And I laugh every time I tell this story, because in my 42nd year, where I, even with my own personal resistance, I took more vacations. I had more weekend getaways with my family. I had more, nope, we're just gonna, put everything aside and we're gonna go do this frivolous, fun excursion today, or we're all gonna, do whatever, family dinner on Sundays and whatever. We made this such a priority. And in the meantime, when I look at all of the things that we did in my business, and, just different milestones that came up along the year, every time my husband and I would go for a walk and we would talk about like, wow, can you believe this? Or that was really great. And I'd say, and I'm still 42. And I'm still 42. And I still haven't turned 43. But even in the last month now, because I've been telling people about this, I laugh and I say, I feel like I've been 42 for 3 years. Like it has been the longest year of my life in the most magical way. And there's, even though I had to fight my own internal urges at times, I really, oh man, it was hard. I did what I committed to do. And there is my business, my being, my clients, nobody suffered. Nobody went without. There was no, regression. There was no, and I was worried about that. And I'm thrilled, and I'm still 42 today.
Yeah. And that's really the thing, having the trust that when we take the time to enjoy our life, that's when we actually have the energy to also bring that to our business, the joy and, the energy that is needed to transform and to reach the goals that we really want to reach. So to understand that it's so closely related, I think that's where many people stop and say like, oh, if it's not painful, if it's not hard, then it's not going to work.
Yeah. And early on in my career, two of my most favorite colleagues who are still good friends of mine, they would say, oh, Heidi's in work mode, right? Heidi's in work mode. And that meant I was focused. I was in it. Do not disrupt me. I am working. But then about 10 years later, I said, work mode, it's like a very channeled vision, right? And so really though, what we always want is we want this macro view. We need to be able to see things at all angles. When you're in work mode, you're actually cutting off part of your vision stream, right? Because it's so narrow. And, and that's where I talk a lot about like, you gotta change your blinders here because you're creating more blind spots for yourself when you're in work mode. And that's that hustle grind, focused, or it's really an exaggerated focused, work stream. And we end up missing more when we're living and working from this sort of macro view. We're allowing our brilliance to just kind of flow through, because that's when you're doing the work that I'm doing, right? It's so much about human experience and human feelings and all of this. And so I can't tell you how this is just beautifully enhanced my work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, where you spoke in the beginning about like how we are programmed. We are programmed to see this one part and to put everything in different boxes. And once we get rid of all the boxes and just put it all together in one, that's when it can become one.
Yeah.
So I feel what you just described was really very clear here. If you want your business, your other goals, anything to succeed, you have to sort of make your life a beautiful whole.
You have to, because if you're not in a place of well-being, your business is not going to be in a place of well-being. It's just not. You're going to bring that energy into your business, and it's going to sabotage what you're doing, right? Even if, let's just say all of your systems and your processes are in place. If your energy is bad, if your attitude is bad, your team members don't want to work with you. They're not as invested in their role, in their function within the team. You're not going to foster those vulnerable conversations. You will not, elicit that sort of creative brainstorming from the people that work closely with you. Everything will feel like work. But when you do the transformation piece and you are fully aligned and you're nurturing this every single day, the work feels like magic. It just happens.
And then, again, what I can imagine many people listening to us talk, it's like, but how is that possible? Where do I start? How do I make sure that when I start believing, I don't drop back into my old fear zone, my own, one channel vision zone? So what would you say to a person who is asking all these questions now in their heads, probably?
So I do believe in, from a place of, where do you start, right? It's, I ask my clients to evaluate, because they typically have a list of a million things that they think would help them, right? Especially when I talk about, like, I need you to nurture yourself. I want you to develop a routine where you can nurture yourself. And, and the worst thing that you can do is create a routine that you're not going to be able to sustain, right? So I say, I want you to pick one or two things, right? And the amount of time that you're going to invest, keep it an hour or less for the day. So if it's a 20-minute walk outside and you want to do some self-help reading and a journal reflection after, okay, that's an hour, right? That's an hour at various points in your day, but keep it an hour or less. The second thing is, try to pair those new activities with something you already do on a daily basis. So my favorite example to give is when I first started my work, I did develop a journal exercise that now I teach, and I paired it with my morning cup of coffee, because I never forgo my morning cup of coffee. It's even if I'm traveling on vacation, I always have it. And that's also a beverage you can't gulp down, right? You kind of got to sip it. You're going to take at least 10 to 15 minutes. So now my journal has my attention for that, 15 minutes that I spend enjoying my coffee as I'm in this place of self-reflection, in silence, just me, first thing in the morning, which is I find to be a beautiful time to just ground myself in my day with myself. And then the other piece around, to your question around what happens when you start doubting, is this really working? What I say to my clients is, even when you're doubting something, can you still do it? Right? So why does the doubt have to become the barrier to getting it done? You can doubt and still follow through with your commitment to do whatever it is you said you're going to do. And my favorite example around that is, for me, physical exercise. I don't love exercising. I do it every single day, but it's not something where I wake up in the morning and I say, I cannot wait to exercise today. But I know myself by now, and I know that once it's done, I never regret doing it. And that's what I hang on to. And I have to tell myself that, because otherwise, the old me would sit there and renegotiate and reprioritize around it. Oh, I don't really want to get out of bed. It's so warm and cozy. I'll just try to fit it in after work. I'll do it then. And then, of course, life happens and it gets reprioritized again, right? But it is so important for me to get that movement in my day, because it relieves stress. And it's a place where I kind of sort through thoughts and I connect dots, and I just kind of let my mind go. And it's good for my body. It's good for my own physical health as well. So for me, the return on the time invested, it's priceless, even though it's, 4 out of 7 days, I'm not looking forward to doing it.
But once you have done it, there's a sense of satisfaction that you have actually gone through it and you have done so much while you did it.
And relief, like it's over, like, and that's okay. I say that to my clients, like, I'm happy I did it. I don't regret doing it. And there's relief that, like, now it's done and I don't have to think about it for the rest of my day.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure everyone has those, For me, it's administrative tasks. Like, I'm just...
Right. But once it's done, there's that relief piece, right? It's like, oh, it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, when we, as adults, we have to do a lot of things that we don't look forward to doing. I say to my clients, do you ever get excited about paying your bills? And they look at me like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, that's my point. I don't get excited about paying my bills either, but we have to pay the bills, right? There's a consequence if we don't pay the bills. Well, there is a cost to not nurturing yourself as well. There is a cost. And I know that cost because I sat on the beach and I couldn't feel happy and filled with joy when I was looking at my little baby enjoying herself and I'm blocked. That was a cost.
Yeah. I mean, you can look at it that way, or you can ask yourself, okay, how can I start enjoying paying the bills actually? What happens when I pay the bills? Then good things happen. You know, my electricity is working, my whatever it is I'm paying the bills for, you know? So I think a lot is also around a very negative language that our societies, our systems use when it comes to tasks that are sort of we have to do. So the question is if it's really something we cannot avoid, then let's start enjoying it in some way. That's what I always think.
Yeah, I mean, if we can find a way to enjoy it, but otherwise just accept that sometimes we have to do things that we don't love doing, but we have to do them. And that's just about being a disciplined adult.
Yeah. It's also about letting go of resistance in some parts.
Exactly.
You know, because often what makes a task then very unpleasant is actually us saying like, I really don't like it. I really don't want to do this. I really, you know.
Exactly. So investing that emotional energy in something, you are then depleting that emotional bandwidth on something that really doesn't necessitate it and doesn't deserve it either, right? So when you're sitting there paying your bills, why would you want to, you know, if you've only got so much bandwidth every day, why do you want to spend it on something that you just needs to get done? You know, let's take the emotion out of it. That's me with my workout, right? It's like, let's just get it done. Let's just get it done, cross it off the list, right? Because I'd rather have more emotional bandwidth to put towards a creative project that I'm loving, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's very powerful. Thinking of it like, does it actually deserve the stress and the attention and the worry and anxieties that I'm putting on this, you know, task that I cannot avoid at the moment?
Right.
Or can I just move past it very quickly and focus on stuff that needs my energy and deserves my positive energy?
Exactly. It's a much more enjoyable experience to be depleting in, you know, positive emotional energy. I don't know if you've ever had this experience of, you know, public speaking, right? I really enjoy, because I see that as a way of like sharing, you know, the ways that I can help, right? So, but after I give a talk or a presentation, I am often very tired. And so, but it's I feel very fulfilled and I'm, you know, often happy and it was a positive experience, but I'm still very tired.
Yeah. Absolutely, because you have put your energy there, but it's something that you love and where you feel you can, you know, share or serve in your way. So that just got me to another point. When it comes to dreaming, you know, and to people just deciding, what is my passion? What is my purpose? What am I really here to do? Is there any advice that you can give about figuring out, okay, this is truly why I'm here. This is really how I can serve this world, because I believe it's all to some extent about us sharing something with the world here.
Yeah, we want to know that we're contributing in some way.
Yeah.
I do think I agree with you. And so when a client is really questioning, is this what I want to do? I encourage them to start doing it in some capacity, because the reality is we might not know for sure until we get out there and we start experiencing whatever it is we're contemplating. You know, and I find a lot of times the instinct is to just keep thinking about it, you know, keep researching, keep talking about it, keep, you know, rather than doing. And that is one of the ways that people get stuck. And then they stop moving forward because they haven't gotten 100% on one direction or another, or one, way they want to move forward, right? They're like, I don't know. Okay. Well, the reality is you probably aren't going to know any more at any future point until you start doing it. And that's going to give you more data for you to assess, is this the way? Is this what to do? So I think at some point we need to move in an action phase. Yeah.
Yeah. So after dreaming, there's always the action phase that puts what we have in our minds and in our hearts into reality.
Well, so there's the dream. Then there's creating sort of the methodology, right? Like, how are you going to do this, right? And a lot of times we know what needs to get done, but then it's like, how is this really going to work? And those are the tangible sort of steps, the routine or the rituals that need to be developed. So we have to start from somewhere. And then we need to just start practicing those things before we can decide, how do we want to refine? So there is that little bit of planning that has to take place. The planning for me is also, I do it from both angles, where it's like, what do you need? But also, what are the potential threats to your journey? Whether they're, limiting beliefs, feeling or thought patterns, unhealthy or obtrusive people or things in your life that could get in the way. What are all of these vulnerabilities and threats? Because we have to acknowledge those things. Those are the things that will trigger us to go back into an automated thought and behavior pattern from all different circumstances. How we grew up, and just stories that we told ourselves, right? And we're not always aware of what those things are. But again, the pursuit of doing then teaches us along the way. So probably the final thing I would want your audience to really grasp here is that the change process is not linear. Right? So you're not just taking, step after step after step forward. Please know that any type of challenge or obstacle or setback that comes up is necessary to your growth, because those are the moments when you're going to realize all of the progress you've made. That is the moment. It will absolutely, and you will think after, like, wow, I can't believe I didn't feel overwhelmed in that situation when they said, Heidi, an email went out with a broken link. Right? And I'm like, okay, so what are we going to do about it? What's the workaround? Where are we at? Right? It's like, because you learn there's nothing you can do in the past. So now how are we going to pivot forward? Right? And just the acknowledgement, there was no overwhelm. You quickly went into problem solving mode. All of a sudden is evidence that there's more confidence here, that you're being more forward thinking, that you're releasing the things you cannot control anyway. You've let those things go and you're focused on what do you have control over, right? So there's probably other things too, but there's this evidence, and you're like, oh, okay. And that setback that normally, would have sent you in a tailspin for 2 days, right, is now a 5-minute ordeal, and you're all of a sudden just implementing now the new workaround.
Yeah, I love that as a beautiful, beautiful ending to our very interesting conversation, because it is true. When we are on this journey, it's never linear. It's never just one straight line. It's like, hills and valleys, and that's what life really is. And it's absolutely okay. There's no judgment there. There's no guilt or shame. It's just what life is. So celebrate when you then notice, oh, this has happened and I've actually changed. I was able to do something else. Yeah.
Because when things are easy, when things are going, how we planned, right? It's very easy to just keep going, right?
Yeah.
But the challenge there that how we respond and react to that's the true moment where you're going to see the evidence.
Yeah, and that's beautiful, because it means that when we encounter an obstacle or barrier or challenge, however we want to call it, we don't have to see it as something negative anymore. We can actually see it as an opportunity to celebrate how much we have grown.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Heidi, thank you so much for your time. This was super insightful.
This is lovely.